There's an article in the Daily Sentinel out of Grand Junction, Colorado. It's titled, Hess Pleads Guilty in Funeral Home Body Part Scheme. Megan Hess, the Montrose funeral home owner accused of selling body parts illegally and giving clients fake ashes, pleaded guilty to mail fraud Tuesday in Grand Junction. As a result of the plea, all other charges against Hess, which include 5 more counts of mail fraud and 3 counts of transporting hazardous material, will be dropped. So she was selling the body parts of people's deceased loved ones without them knowing it. This is sick. Hess, age 45, and her mother, Shirley Cox, were indicted by a grand jury in March of 2020 and accused of using their funeral home to sell body parts, sometimes forging signatures on consent forms, and misleading families as to how their loved ones' remains would be treated. I exceeded the scope of the consent and I'm trying to make an effort to make it right, Hess said when asked to describe exactly how she committed the crime, to which she was pleading guilty. Well, she's only doing that because she got caught. According to court documents, Hess and Koch are accused of setting up Sunset Mesa Funeral Directors in Montrose as a non-profit, selling hundreds of bodies for research from 2010 to 2018, even if the person or family's wishes were for cremation. Loved ones then received ashes in urns that were not those of the deceased. Some of those body parts also belonged to people with infectious diseases such as HIV and hepatitis, according to court documents, information that Hess and Koch are accused of withholding from buyers. I didn't know that there was even a market for body parts. Nothing like that would have ever even crossed my mind. Sunset Mesa used its funeral services' low rates as a way to ensure a steady supply of body parts to sell, according to court documents, and oftentimes was used because people had nowhere else to go. At the hearing in the federal court, Hess was read an account of the crime and asked if that's what she did, to which she replied yes. Both during and after the hearing, some victims expressed displeasure with Hess's statements, saying that she didn't show enough remorse. Well, the only thing that she's sorry for is she got caught. Otherwise she would still be doing this, and I'm sure she was making some money off of that. Some good money. I'm taking responsibility, Hess said. I'm here to accept the plea. The families believe I went beyond the scope of the consent form. You did go beyond the scope of the consent forms. It has been 53 months since this legal travesty began, she said. 53 long months. Oh, poor you. During the hearing, some victims of the scheme said they considered the plea agreement generous, but urged the court to accept it anyway so they could move on. I would like to hear Ms. Hess admit what she has done instead of a jury finding her guilty, Deborah Scum said. Daniel McCarthy, whose active military husband's remains were part of the scheme, said the families were defrauded during the most sacred part of a person's life. This is so unconscionable, she said. Assistant U.S. Attorney Jeremy Chafin said Hess's statements and how much remorse she showed would be taken in consideration during sentencing. Hess is tentatively scheduled to be sentenced in January. Mail fraud carries a maximum of 20 years in prison. There is some discrepancy between the sentencing calculations made by the prosecution, which had estimated Hess should serve between 151 and 188 months in prison, and the defense, which estimated she should serve between 21 and 27 months. At least one of these sentencing calculations is inherently not going to be correct, Judge Gordon Gallagher said. A pre-sentencing investigation will provide a recommendation for the time served. Scott Koch is scheduled for a change of plea hearing July 12th. So she's only going to get a maximum of 188 months in prison for illegally selling body parts. That doesn't seem like enough time to me. I mean, if that was one of my family members, I would be devastated. I hope something changes and she gets a heck of a lot more time than that. That's all I have. Y'all have a good day.